So I loved physics, and I studied physics and computer science, and I was proceeding along the physics path. I was planning to major in physics, and I wanted to be a theoretical physicist. And the computer science was sort of something I was doing for fun. I really loved it, and I was very good at the programming and doing those things, and I enjoyed all my computer science classes immensely. But I really was determined to be a theoretical physicist. It's why I went to Princeton in the first place. It was definitely, and then I realized I was going to be a mediocre theoretical physicist. And there were a few people in my classes, like in quantum mechanics and so on, who they could effortlessly do things that were so difficult for me. And I realized, like, there are 1,000 ways to be smart.
Mhm.
And to be a really, theoretical physics is not one of those fields where only the top few percent actually move the state of the art forward.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where you have to be really, just your brain has to be wired in a certain way. And there was a guy named, one of these people who was, convinced me. He didn't mean to convince me, but just by observing him, he
Yeah.
convinced me that I should not try to be a theoretical physicist. His name was Yosanta. And Yosanta, was from Sri Lanka, and he was one of the most brilliant people I'd ever met. My friend Joe and I were working on a very difficult partial differential equations problem set one night, and there was one problem that we worked on for 3 hours,
Mhm.
and we made no headway whatsoever. And we looked up at each other at the same time, and we said, "Yosanta." So we went to Yosanta's dorm room,
Yeah.
and he was there. He was almost always there. And we said, Yosanta, we're having trouble solving this partial differential equation. Would you mind taking a look?
Mhm.
And he said, of course. By the way, he was the most humble, most kind person.
Mhm.
And so he looked at our problem and he stared at it for just a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. And he said, cosine. And I said, what do you mean, Yosanta? What do you mean cosine? He said, that's the answer.
Mhm.
And I said, no, 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 come on. And he said, let me show you. And he took out some paper and he wrote down 3 pages of equations.
Mhm.
Everything canceled out.
Mhm.
And the answer was cosine. And I said, Yosanta, did you do that in your head? And he said,
Yeah.
oh, no, that would be impossible. A few years ago, I solved a similar problem. And I could map this problem onto that problem. And then it was immediately obvious that the answer was cosine. I had a few, you have an experience like that. You realize maybe being a theoretical physicist isn't your, isn't what what the universe wants you to be. And so I switched to computer science, and that worked out really well for me. I enjoy it. I still enjoy it today.
Yeah, there's a particular kind of intuition you need to be a great physicist in applied to physics.
I think the mathematical skill
Yeah.
required today is so high. You have to be a world-class mathematician to be a successful theoretical physicist today.
Mhm.
And it's not, you probably need other skills too, intuition, lateral thinking, and so on. But without just top-notch math skills, you're unlikely to be successful.
And visualization skill, you have to be able to really kind of do these kinds of thought experiments. And if you want truly great creativity, actually, Walter Isaacson writes about you. It puts you on the same level as Einstein.
Well,
And
he's that's very kind. But I'm an inventor. If you want to boil down what I am, I'm really an inventor. And I look at things and I can come up with atypical solutions